Afro-Asiatic, also known as Afroasian and traditionally as Hamito-Semitic, is a large language family of several hundred related languages and dialects. It comprises about 300 or so living languages and dialects, according to the 2009 Ethnologue estimate. It includes languages spoken predominantly in the Middle East, North Africa, the Horn of Africa, and parts of the Sahel. Afro-Asiatic languages have 350+ million native speakers, the fourth largest number of any language family. It has 6 branches: Berber, Chadic, Cognates, Egyptian, Omotic and Semitic. The most widely spoken Afro-Asiatic language is Arabic, which has around 200 to 230 million native speakers concentrated primarily in the Middle East and in parts of North Africa. Tamazight and other Berber varieties are spoken in Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, northern Mali, and northern Niger by about 25 to 35 million people. Other widely spoken Afro-Asiatic languages include Hauser, the dominant language of northern Nigeria and southern Niger, spoken as a first language by 25 million people, and used as a lingua franca by another 20 million across West Africa and the Sahel. Oromo of Ethiopia and Kenya, with about 33 million speakers total. Amharic of Ethiopia, with over 25 million native speakers in addition to millions of other Ethiopians speaking it as a second language. Somali, spoken by 15.5 million people in Greater Somalia. Modern Hebrew, spoken by around 7 million people worldwide. Modern Aramaic, spoken by about 550,000 people worldwide. This is not just one language, it includes a number of subdivisions, with Assyrian Neo-Aramaic being the most spoken variety. In addition to languages spoken today, Afro-Asiatic includes several important ancient languages, such as Ancient Egyptian, Akkadian, Biblical Hebrew, and Old Aramaic. Etymology. The Afro-Asiatic language family was originally referred to as Hamito-Semitic, a term introduced in the 1860s by the German scholar Karl Richard Lepsius. The name was later popularized by Friedrich Müller in his Grundrisse der Sprachwissenschaft. The term Afro-Asiatic was later coined by Maurice Delafosse. However, it did not come into general use until Joseph Greenberg formally proposed its adoption. In doing so, Greenberg sought to emphasize the fact that Afro-Asiatic was represented transcontinentally, in both Africa and Asia. Individual scholars have also called the family Erythraean and Listorien. In lieu of Hamito-Semitic, the Russian linguist Igor Dyakonov later suggested the term Afroasian, meaning half African, half Asiatic, in reference to the geographic distribution of the family's constituent languages. The term Hamito-Semitic remains in use in the academic traditions of some European countries. Distribution and branches. The Afro-Asiatic language family is usually considered to include the following branches: Berber, Chadic, Cushitic, Egyptian, Omotic, Semitic. Although there is general agreement on these 6 families, there are some points of disagreement among linguists who study Afro-Asiatic. In particular, the Omotic language branch is the most controversial member of Afro-Asiatic, because the grammatical formatives that most linguists have given greatest weight in classifying languages in the family are either absent or distinctly wobbly. Greenberg and others considered it a subgroup of Cushitic, whereas others have raised doubts about it being part of Afro-Asiatic at all. The Afro-Asiatic identity of Omotar is also broadly questioned, as is its position within Afro-Asiatic among those who accept it, due to the mixed appearance of the language and a paucity of research and data. Harold Fleming proposes that Omotar constitutes a separate branch of Afro-Asiatic. Bonnie Sands believes the most convincing proposal is by Sava and Tosco, namely that Omotar is an East Cushitic language with a Nilo-Saharan substratum. In other words, It would appear that the Omnatar people once spoke a Nilo-Saharan language but then shifted to speaking a Cusgetic language but retained some characteristics of their earlier Nilo-Saharan language. Behar is sometimes listed as a separate branch of Afro-Asiatic but is more often included in the Cushitic branch, which has a high degree of internal diversity. Whether the various branches of Cushitic actually form a language family is sometimes questioned, but not their inclusion in Afro-Asiatic itself. There is no consensus on the interrelationships of the 5 non-Omotic branches of Afro-Asiatic. This situation is not unusual, even among long-established language families. There are also many disagreements concerning the internal classification of the Indo-European languages. For instance, Moroitic has been proposed as an unclassified Afro-Asiatic language, because it shares the phonotactics characteristic of the family. But there is not enough evidence to secure a classification. Classification history. In the 9th century, the Hebrew grammarian Judah ibn Kararish of Tiarit in Algeria was the first to link 2 branches of Afro-Asiatic together. He perceived a relationship between Berber and Semitic. He knew of Semitic through his study of Arabic, Hebrew, and Aramaic. In the course of the 19th century, Europeans also began suggesting such relationships. In 1844, Theodore Benfey suggested a language family consisting of Semitic, Berber, and Cusgetic. In the same year, T.N. Newman suggested a relationship between Semitic and Hauser, but this would long remain a topic of dispute and uncertainty. Friedrich Müller named the traditional Hamito-Semitic family in 1876 in his Grundriss der Sprachwissenschaft. He defined it as consisting of a Semitic group plus a Hamitic group containing Egyptian, Berber, and Cushitic. He excluded the Chadic group. These classifications relied in part on non-linguistic anthropological and racial arguments that have largely been discredited. Leo Reinisch proposed linking Cushitic and Chadic, while urging a more distant affinity to Egyptian and Semitic, thus foreshadowing Greenberg. But his suggestion found little resonance. Marcel Cohen rejected the idea of a distinct Hamitic subgroup and included Hauser in his comparative Hamito-Semitic vocabulary. Joseph Greenberg strongly confirmed Cohen's rejection of Hamitic, added the Chadic branch, and proposed the new name, Afro-Asiatic, for the family. Nearly all scholars have accepted Greenberg's classification. In 1969, Harold Fleming proposed that what had previously been known as Western Cushitic is an independent branch of Afro-Asiatic, suggesting for it the new name Omotic. This proposal and name have met with widespread acceptance. Several scholars, including Harold Fleming and Robert Hetzroen, have since questioned the traditional inclusion of Behar in Cushitic. Glottolog does not accept that the inclusion or even unity of Omotic has been established, nor that of Omnotar or the unclassified Kujaj, and so splits off the following groups as small families. South Omotic, Mao, Dezoid, Gongagimuryan, Omnotar, Kujaj. Subgrouping. Little agreement exists on the subgrouping of the 5 or 6 branches of Afro-Asiatic: Semitic, Egyptian, Berber, Chadic, Cusgetic, and Omotic. However, Christopher Ehret, Harold Fleming, and Joseph Greenberg all agree that the Omotic branch split from the rest first. Otherwise, Paul Newman groups Berber with Chadic and Egyptian with Semitic, while questioning the inclusion of Omotic in Afro-Asiatic. Rolf Thiel concurs with the exclusion of Omotic, but does not otherwise address the structure of the family. Harold Fleming divides non-Omotic Afro-Asiatic, or Erythraean, into 3 groups: Cusgetic, Semitic, and Chadic Berber Egyptian. He later added Semitic and Behar to Chadic Berber Egyptian and tentatively proposed Omnotar as a new 3rd branch of Erythraean. He thus divided Afro-Asiatic into 2 major branches, Omotic and Erythraean, with Erythraean consisting of 3 sub-branches: Cusgetic, Chadic, Berber, Egyptian, Semitic, Behar, and Omotar. Like Harold Fleming, Christopher Ehret divides Afro-Asiatic into two branches, Omotic and Erythrean. He divides Omotic into two branches, North Omotic and South Omotic. He divides Erythrean into Cognates, comprising Behar, Agav, and East-South Cognates, and North Erythrean, comprising Chadic and Afro-Asian. According to his classification, Afro-Asian consists of Egyptian, Berber, and Semitic. Vladimir Orr and Olga Stolbova group Berber with Semitic and Chadic with Egyptian. They split up Cushitic into 5 or more independent branches of Afro-Asiatic, viewing Cushitic as a Sprachbund rather than a language family. Igor M. Diakonoff subdivides Afro-Asiatic in two, grouping Berber, Cushitic, and Semitic together as East-West Afrasian, and Chadic with Egyptian as North-South Afrasian. He excludes Omotic from Afro-Asiatic. Lionel Bender groups Berber, Cushitic, and Semitic together as Macro-Cushitic. He regards Chadic and Omotic as the branches of Afro-Asiatic most remote from the others. Alexander Militarev, on the basis of lexicostatistics, groups Berber with Chadic and both more distantly with Semitic, as against Cushitic and Omotic. He places Omotar in South Omotic position among the world's languages. Afro-Asiatic is one of the 4 language families of Africa identified by Joseph Greenberg in his book The Languages of Africa. It is the only one that extends outside of Africa, via the Semitic branch. There are no generally accepted relations between Afro-Asiatic and any other language family. However, several proposals grouping Afro-Asiatic with one or more other language families have been made. The best known of these are the following. Hermann Moller argued for a relation between Semitic and the Indo-European languages. This proposal was accepted by some linguists but has little currency today. Apparently influenced by Moller, Holger Pedersen included Hamito-Semitic in his proposed Nostratic macro family, which also included the Indo-European, Finno-Ugric, Samoyed, Turkish, Mongolian, Manchu, Ukariya languages, and Dravidian languages. This inclusion was retained by subsequent Nostraticists, starting with Vladislav Ilyich Svitik and Aharondil Gopolsky. Joseph Greenberg did not reject a relationship of Afro-Asiatic to these other languages, but he considered it more distantly related to them than they were to each other, grouping instead these other languages in a separate macro-family, which he called Eurasiatic, and to which he added Chukottian, Gilyak, Korean, Japanese Ryukyuan, Eskimo Aleutian, and Ainu. Most recently, Sergei Starostin's school has accepted Eurasiatic as a subgroup of Nostratic, with Afro-Asiatic, Dravidian, and Kartvalian and Nostratic outside of Eurasiatic. An even larger Borean group would contain Nostratic as well as Dene Caucasian and Astric. Date of Afro-Asiatic. The earliest written evidence of an Afro-Asiatic language is an ancient Egyptian inscription of c. 3400 BC. Symbols on Gurzian pottery resembling Egyptian hieroglyphs date back to c. 4000 BC, suggesting a still earlier possible date. This gives us a minimum date for the age of Afro-Asiatic. However, ancient Egyptian is highly divergent from Proto-Afro-Asiatic, and considerable time must have elapsed in between them. Estimates of the date at which the Proto-Afro-Asiatic language was spoken vary widely. They fall within a range between approximately 7,500 BC and approximately 16,000 BC. According to Igor M. Diakonoff, Proto-Afro-Asiatic was spoken c. 10,000 BC. According to Christopher Ehret, Proto-Afro-Asiatic was spoken c. 11,000 BC at the latest and possibly as early as a c. 16,000 BC. These dates are older than dates associated with most other proto-languages. Afro-Asiatic Heimat. The term Afroasiatic or Heimat refers to the hypothetical place where Proto-Afroasiatic speakers lived in a single linguistic community, or complex of communities, before this original language dispersed geographically and divided into distinct languages. Afroasiatic languages are today primarily spoken in the Middle East, North Africa, the Horn of Africa, and parts of the Sahel. Their distribution seems to have been influenced by the Saharan pump operating over the last 10,000 years. There is no agreement on when or where this Heimat existed. Proposed locations include the Horn of Africa, North Africa, the Eastern Sahara, and the Levant. Similarities in grammar and syntax. Widespread features of the Afroasiatic languages include a set of emphatic consonants, variously realized as glottalized, pharyngealized, or implosive, VSO typology with SVO tendencies, a two-gender system in the singular, with the feminine marked by the sound T. All Afroasiatic subfamilies show evidence of a causative affix S. Semitic, Berber, Cushitic, and Chadic support possessive suffixes. Morphology in which words inflect by changes within the root as well as with prefixes and suffixes. One of the most remarkable shared features among the Afroasiatic languages is the prefixing verb conjugation, with a distinctive pattern of prefixes beginning with tny, and in particular a pattern whereby third singular masculine, y, is opposed to third singular feminine and second singular, t. According to Eret, tonal languages appear in the Omotic and Chadic branches of Afroasiatic, as well as in certain Cushitic languages. The Semitic, Berber and Egyptian branches generally do not use tones phonemically. Shared vocabulary. The following are some examples of Afroasiatic cognates, including 10 pronouns, 3 nouns, and 3 verbs. Source: Christopher Eret, Reconstructing Proto-Afroasiatic. Note: Eret does not make use of Berber in his etymologies, stating, "The kind of extensive reconstruction of Proto-Berber lexicon that might help in sorting through alternative possible etymologies is not yet available." The Berber cognates here are taken from previous version of table in this article, and need to be completed and referenced. Abbreviations. Nom equals North Omotic, Som equals South Omotic, MSA equals Modern South Arabian, PSC equals Proto-Southern Cushitic, PSOM2 equals Proto-Somali, Stage 2, Mask equals masculine, fem equals feminine, sing equals singular, place equals plural, 1s equals first person singular, 2s equals second person singular. Symbols. Following Eret, a caron over a vowel indicates rising tone, and a circumflex caret over a vowel indicates falling tone. V indicates a vowel of unknown timbre, indicates a glottal stop. Asterisk indicates reconstructed forms based on comparison of related languages. There are 2 etymological dictionaries of Afroasiatic, one by Christopher Eret, and one by Vladimir Oral and Olga Stolbova. The 2 dictionaries disagree on almost everything. The following table contains the 30 roots or so that represent a fragile consensus of present research. Etymological bibliography. Some of the main sources for Afroasiatic etymologies include Cohen, Marcel, 1947. Essai comparatif sur le vocabulaire et la phonétique du chamito sémitique. Paris. Champion. Diakonoff, Igor M. al. 1993–1997. Historical Comparative Vocabulary of Afrasian. St. Petersburg Journal of African Studies 2–6. Eret, Christopher. 1995. Reconstructing Proto-Afroasiatic. Vowels, Tone, Consonants, and Vocabulary. Berkeley and Los Angeles. University of California Press. Oral, Vladimir E. and Olga V. Stolbova. 1995. Hamito-Semitic Etymological Dictionary. Materials for Reconstruction. Leiden. Brill. ISBN 90-04-10051-2.